Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of 100 Yards of Football Sports Talk Radio. I'm your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers, and today I'm going to be talking about and discussing the 2024 Atlanta Falcons and their current search for a brand new head coach, who all they've looked at, who all that they have in mind, and just how they've done so far. They've had a very busy offseason so far, and they have still yet to name a head coach as of the time of this recording. Before we get into it though, guys, if you enjoy the episode, give us a like, follow, share, and of course subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. We go live on Facebook and YouTube every single week, our main two social media hubs. You can also find us on the Believe Podcast Network, which is available on all major podcast streaming platforms, guys. Spotify, Apple Podcast, iTunes, iHeartRadio, just to name a few. Well, let's get into it. Let's talk about these Falcons, who all they've talked with, and just how they've done so far. So they have not hired a head coach yet. They're still looking, obviously. The NFL playoffs are still underway. And the coach, the Falcons have looked at a plethora of head coaches across multiple teams. And it's going to be interesting to see who they decide to go with. Some of the guys that have interviewed for the position in Atlanta. Obviously, one of the big ones is going to be University of Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh. One of the latest ones to go and interview. We know that he is a very, very popular man right now. A lot of teams are going to want his services to be head coach. Obviously, coming off a national championship at Michigan, really good pedigree, really good skill set. Obviously, Coach Harbaugh, coveted coach in this 2024 season. And another name that makes Falcons fans, for the most part, they usually kind of cringe and step back when they hear the name Bill Belichick. He's interviewed not once, but he's interviewed with Atlanta twice now. So that is an interesting development. As of my knowledge, he's the only coach to have been interviewed for the job twice so far. We obviously know what Coach Belichick's done, the legacy he's got, the dynasty he built with Tom Brady and company in New England. The mindset he's got, the no-nonsense approach. A lot of people say that he'd be a good fit for this young Atlanta Falcons team. Maybe to help guide them in a right direction. So those are the two, I would say, heavy hitters in terms of just in terms of name, star power alone, is Coach Belichick, Coach Harbaugh. We know that they have done a good job in their NFL coaching careers, college coaching careers, respectively. Now, the rest of the guys who have been interviewed, once again, this is coming from the Atlanta Falcons official website, who they've interviewed. They've talked with Baltimore Ravens assistant head coach and also defensive line coach Anthony Weaver. Now, we know that obviously the Ravens are in the playoff. They've yet to play their first game as of yet. But they have, as they typically always do, a lights-out defense, tremendous defense. And Coach Weaver, I'm sure, plays a huge part in that, in getting that team prepped each and every single week. We'll see what happens to him. Interesting name, I thought. Carolina Panthers defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero. Now, when you think about it, you're like, okay, what are they doing looking at this guy who was in Carolina, who, as we know, had the worst, had not a very good season. We'll be a little nicer. Not a very good season with the NFC South and just in general. But he's 43. He's younger. And he's a guy who is, well respected across the league. A lot of people say that he's someone to maybe watch out for. He's only been in Carolina just for a small amount of time, but he is a name to potentially watch out for. But like I said, I'm not super sold on it being Ejiro Evero out there. Another name that has been tossed around in the head coaching realm is San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator Steve Wilks. Once again, the 49ers, much like the Ravens, have yet to play in the postseason. But we know what San Francisco has been done. We all talk about their offense, but the defense is also pretty impressive. Nonetheless, Steve Wilks is a name that has been thrown around for a couple of seasons now. In terms of, could he be a head coach somewhere? I think he could be a solid fit in Atlanta. In Cincinnati, offensive coordinator Brian Callahan. We all know that the Bengals, not the best season overall in 2023, but they have I could see the comparisons in the teams. Um, with the Bengals, they have a super young core. Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, obviously the top two there. And obviously in Atlanta, you got Kyle Pitts and Drake London, Bijan Robinson. Um, but for Cincinnati, not the great season, as we know that Joe Burrow got hurt. So you couldn't really see the full potential of them this year. We know they made the Super Bowl not too long ago. But interesting name out there in Cincinnati that could come to Atlanta, and Brian Callahan. And the last one, going back to the Ravens, this is going to be defensive coordinator Mike Macdonald. Another name's been thrown out for quite some time now as a potential head coach. With Baltimore, that they are a heck of a defensive team. There's enough said about that and how well they have done. It's interesting though. So, and I've said this, that really ever since the Falcons got rid of Arthur Smith, they let him go, and they've been looking for a head coach. The Falcons have one of the most interesting destinations this offseason. And I say that because, as I just mentioned, they have that super young core on offense, except for that one big hole. And that hole is at quarterback. We've talked throughout the season about how the quarterback room in Atlanta just hasn't been the greatest with Taylor Heineke. Obviously with the poor play of Desmond Ridder, having him being benched multiple times this season, it is, I think, pretty clear to me and to a lot of Falcons fans that quarterback is a key room for improvement. Now, whether that be in the draft, there's a lot of young quarterbacks in this draft that Atlanta could go after, with them having a high pick this year. Or another route that people talk about is you could go get a free agent, pick up a free agent, a veteran perhaps, to build around that young core. So the Falcons have a lot of interesting ideas they could float around, a lot of concepts they could work with. If you go with the young quarterback, the drafting route, it might take a little bit longer for them to mesh. You never know. And if you go with the veteran, you don't know how well he could perform in the new city with the new team, with this young core, to just kind of enhance them. But I think Atlanta is going to be a top destination for a lot of head coaches. As you can see, they've interviewed quite some names. And whoever the Falcons decide to go with, I think they're coming into a young nucleus with a lot of talent. And, with the right coach, the right pieces, the Falcons could be back in playoff contention sooner rather than later, because as we know, they have not made the playoffs since that tragic loss in the Super Bowl, which a lot of Atlanta fans like to forget about, and rightfully so. Was a devastating loss for the city. But guys, I want to hear your comments, though, your thoughts about who will take over the head coaching realm in Atlanta. Who will it be? Will it be a Jim Harbaugh? Will it be a Bill Belichick? Will it be one of the younger guys, an Edger Evero, a Steve Wilkes per se, Mike Macdonald? Or will it be a name I have not mentioned, someone they have not interviewed as of yet? It remains to be seen. But guys, I've been your host and producer this afternoon, Logan Landers. If you enjoyed the video, give us a like, follow, share, and subscribe on social media. And of course, check out our podcast each and every single week. Go enjoy some football this weekend, everyone. And we'll talk to y'all again on another live